You've been listening to the top Democrat in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, as by his prepared remarks, you can tell it was no surprise that Republicans would block this bipartisan independent January 6th commission. The president, Michael Steele, as you join this conversation again, or excuse me, Schumer, as you join the conversation again, blaming fear or fealty to the former president, Donald Trump.
Fear and fealty, that really sums it up. He put his finger right on it. And look, we can play the partisan game. I can be partisan with the best of them when I need to be and throw down like that. But, the reality of this moment really was focused on the events of January 6th and getting to for all of us to understand what happened, how it happened, why it happened, who was involved. The Republicans in the House and the Senate. So, I think we need to understand that what the Republicans in the House did was not absent any discussion or understanding with Republicans in the Senate. So, because you wanted to coordinate, if the initial idea was, we're going to do something bipartisan here, let's be coordinated in the first stage of this with the House bill. So, to now turn against that and to say that that process that gave you everything you wanted was no longer valid just signifies just how Trumpian the party has become, not just in the politics, but in doing the basic right things. And so now it's going to be left up to the American people to evaluate this and to see for themselves and decide for themselves how they process what Republicans did today. For the Democrats, they're going to have to make a very hard decision about how they process this and go forward as well.
I want to get back to the Hill right now. Michael, stay with us and our panel as well. Leanne, just to take us into the Senate chamber, if you can. Again, that final vote was 54 to 35. There had been 35 House Republicans who joined Democrats to move this forward. It needed 10 Republican senators. It only got 6 of them today. Break down what we just saw there.
That's right, Peter. It's pretty remarkable, actually, that there were, on a percentage basis, seemed to be more House Republicans who voted for this than Senate Republicans. This vote was expected. We've been talking about it for a couple weeks. It was unexpected that it was going to come so quickly today. And when it did, our colleague Julie Sirkin, who was in the chamber during the vote, said that there were some pretty tense conversations, including between Senator Susan Collins of Maine, who voted for the commission today, but she also wanted some changes. She was having a very intense conversation with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. We don't know what that was about yet, but we do know that she was trying to make changes to the legislation to perhaps bring more Republicans on board. And there's a very heavy skepticism, though, among Democrats that any more Republicans would come on board regardless of the changes. Democrats point to the concessions that Speaker Pelosi had made to accommodate some of the Republican demands regarding the scope of the commission, the makeup of the commission, and who has subpoena power to make it more bipartisan. And that was not still enough to get enough Republicans on board, especially when Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell came out in opposition to the commission even before it was passed in the House of Representatives. And so that was a huge sign to his colleagues, and they followed his lead. Peter?
11 senators not even in attendance for today's vote.
Yeah.
Even still, it was clear it wouldn't have been enough for this to pass. Robert Gibbs, to you, you've worked behind the doors at the Obama White House. You're in conversations with folks who are a part of this White House as well. This is the first Republican filibuster of the Biden presidency. What takeaways does President Biden and his team take from this moment here as it relates to their efforts, whether to try to act in a bipartisan fashion going forward on other topics, or whether they're going to need to go it alone on many of these?
Yeah, Peter, it's a great question. And I think you saw a little bit of President Biden acknowledging this at the top of his remarks in remembering former Virginia Senator John Warner, a Republican. And you heard Biden say the way things used to be when you had bipartisan compromise. Look, I think everything that's wrong and broken about our politics was on display in this debate in the Senate. Why is there even a filibuster on moving this legislation forward? Why, when Democrats sit down with Republicans and go through and say, great, we'll take every one of your suggestions in making the bill better and in trying to make the bipartisan commission even more bipartisan. And at the end of that discussion, after all of those compromises are made, Republicans are still voting no. So I think if you're the president, if you're the White House, you're understanding, how does this impact all this other legislation? If we sit down and have these discussions, can we ever get enough people on the other side to yes in a world where everything is just Democrat versus Republican? So again, I think it's probably a very sobering day at the White House. Not unexpected, but it just shows you the steepness of the hill that they have to climb to get anything done.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's right. Victoria DeFrancesco Soto is joining us as well. And Victoria, I want your sense of the optics of this moment across the country. Republicans, there was obviously concern there would be a political penalty if there was a relitigation of the former president heading into the midterms next year. Is there perhaps a penalty for this vote today for Republicans as well? Do they risk alienating millions of voters?
The short answer is yes, Peter. And this vote, what happened today, is very saddening, but not surprising. And what I want to do is I want to do the numbers, because we have seen since the early part of this year, poll after poll show that there's a consistency in where Republicans, majority of Republicans, stand in terms of the January 6th riot. They don't think it was a big deal. They don't think that it's worth prosecuting. Whereas we know that the majority of Americans, 70% of Americans, say this is wrong. We need to bring this to justice. We need a commission. But that has not moved. And I think the Republican leadership has seen that not only has that number not dwindled of the on-the-ground Republicans, but they are getting bolder and they are getting more firm in their convention because it's coming from the top. President Trump, former President Trump, said that the folks at the January 6th riot posed zero threat. So that is an echo chamber within the far right that continues to take hold. And, you know, it is very saddening that these lawmakers, rather than lead independently and show that what is right, we have the information, we have the investigations, and bring along the folks on the ground with them, they're letting the folks who have been pulled to the extreme take them forward.
And Michael Steele, again to you, though, there is no love lost between the top Republican in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, and the former president, Donald Trump. Today, Mitch McConnell basically handed the former president a win, didn't he?
He did. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter whether there's love lost or not. It's whether you do what I ask you to do or do what I tell you to do. And Mitch McConnell has, you know, been accommodating along the way on that. Look, you go out and you condemn January 6th. You say the president was responsible, but then, you know, here we are 5 months later, you're blocking anything that would investigate that. So, we need to get our heads out of this narrative about the relationship between Donald Trump and Republican leaders in the party. It's a one-way relationship. It is fealty to him, period. So as I've said before, Kevin McCarthy, you do what you need to do to make Donald Trump happy today. There's no guarantee he's going to be in your corner when you go for Speaker next year. Mitch McConnell, you delivered the prize to Donald Trump. He'll probably trash you next week because he doesn't like something you've said. So that's the nature of the relationship. The rest of us now have to figure out how we move forward. And this is going to be critical for Democrats. You're now at the tip of the spear moment where you're going to have to decide how you prosecute your agenda going forward. There's a whole lot of stuff that's being proposed that I know I'm ready to debate and get into it with them, $6 trillion in spending, et cetera. But you've got to fundamentally decide you're going to play the game. And you're going to have to get in the game because the Republicans are building the wall that will block you out from playing the game effectively. So you've got to figure that out.
A lot of Democrats are going to be eyeing Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Of course, his vote will be crucial. Kristen Sinema of Arizona, as Democrats need to have all 50 votes in lockstep if they are to pursue any of these agenda items going forward through reconciliation, which means doing it alone. To our panel, Leanne Caldwell, Michael Steele, Robert Gibbs, and Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, we appreciate all of you being with us for this morning's Breaking News.